Welcome to the mathematics segment of the October 25th, 2012, Transforming Kindergarten Classrooms, Extending the Work of TLI 2011. This webinar has been broken into 3 segments in order to create sections that are more manageable. Let me introduce myself. I am Lynn Baker, a coordinator in the Office of Early Learning. My primary focus is mathematics and science in the elementary classrooms. The Office of Early Learning is a new office within the West Virginia Department of Education. Our challenge is to transform the learning experience for elementary students pre-K to 5th grade. Throughout this year, you will be receiving information and support from our office as we develop a pre-K through 5th grade professional support system. This segment will focus on the counting and cardinality standard of the next generation CSOs. This standard provides the foundation for future work in mathematics. The foundation that is built in kindergarten will impact student understanding in elementary, middle, and high school. It is important for you as a kindergarten teacher to take the time needed for students to develop an understanding of the concepts defined in these objectives. There are 3 clusters in the counting and cardinality standard: know numbered names and the count sequence, count to tell the number of objects, compare numbers. Let's look at the first cluster, know number names and the count sequence. There are several early fluency objectives included in this cluster. Saying the number sequence, counting by tens also helps students develop an understanding of our number system. Writing the numerals from 0 to 20. This is a beginning fluency standard. When students are able to write the numerals easily, they do not have to stop and think about how to write the number. This frees portions of the brain to be used for problem solving. Let's take a closer look at the number sequence. The objective states that the student will count to 100 by ones and tens. Notice the number in parentheses. This is the number of the Common Core objective. The Common Core numbers have been added to the objectives on the Teach 21 site. Counting to 10 is a big deal. If you have kindergarten students at the beginning of the year who are unable to count to 10 easily, you need to monitor their progress closely. Make sure that you model this counting sequence frequently. You may have students begin counting as they are walking in line, jumping up and down, or even waiting on the bus. Do not stop at 10. Keep counting to 100. Counting from 11 to 20 is a challenge for many students. They frequently make mistakes. Think about this for a moment. We write the 1 representing the tens first, and the numeral representing the 1 second. Then we say it the opposite. Think about 13, 14. Then we have 11 and 12. This can be very confusing for the young learner. So let's think about where and when you can practice saying the number sequence during the day. Then intentionally plan to include this into our daily routine. Saying the number sequence is the first step in developing fluency in mathematics. Children need to be very fluent in counting. This is a big idea. The hundreds chart is another useful tool. As humans, our brains seek out patterns. Some patterns are useful in developing understanding, while others are simply interesting. The emphasis on patterns within the next generation content standards and objectives are within the standards for mathematical practice. Patterns are used to help students make sense of the mathematics. They do not include tasks like completing a pattern. An interesting task for your students would be for you to share a numbers chart or a hundreds chart. Simply ask the students to tell you about the patterns they see. You may be amazed at the patterns they identify. It would be interesting to repeat this task several times during the school year. Do students continue to find new patterns in this chart? A hundreds chart is also useful in helping young students develop an understanding of place value. Count to tell the number of objects. The first objective in this cluster focuses on cardinality. Cardinality is the understanding that the last number said in counting objects tells how many. Do students go back and count when they are asked how many after they have already counted the objects? Understanding that each successive number name refers to a quantity that is one larger is laying the foundation for addition. Let's examine MKCC5. Count to answer how many questions. There is a learning progression within this single objective. Children begin counting by starting with small numbers, moving to larger numbers as the year progresses. They count in a line, a rectangular array, a circle, scattered configuration. Within this, observe how students keep record of the objects they have already counted, followed by counting out that many objects. Counting out is different thinking than to count a given number of objects. Students need to be doing both. Look for ways to embed this into your daily task. Have the table leader get a pair of scissors or other objects for each person at the table. The student will need to count how many are needed and then count out the number of objects for their table. An excellent time for formative assessment. The third cluster is comparing numbers. Once again, there is progression within this cluster. Students begin comparing actual objects using matching, followed by counting strategies. Then moving to compare two numbers written as numerals between 1 and 10. This is a complex task for a kindergarten student. They need an understanding of the two numbers. Then they need strategies for comparing. Placing the numbers on a number line is not a strategy used within the next generation CSOs for kindergarten. The number line is introduced in second grade in the measurement standard. Let's take one more look at the clusters in counting and cardinality. Remember, there are multiple progressions within this standard. These concepts are developed within the context of the mathematical instruction in your classroom. Even though the numbers are sequential, it is not intended for the objectives to be taught in the order listed. Get your students involved in counting. Help your students see that everything is an opportunity to count. During each webinar segment, we want to take the opportunity to highlight various materials that are available to the classroom teacher. Today, I want to highlight the descriptive analysis of the next generation objectives. This document includes a description of each objective that has been vetted by the authors of the Common Core State Standards. Teachers may use these descriptions to help them clarify the meaning of each objective. Even though I have had the opportunity to study and even meet the authors of the Common Core State Standards, I continue to study and learn about these standards and objectives daily. In conclusion, I want to challenge you to provide opportunities for students to count daily. Have your students look for number patterns in a hundreds chart, and for you to become a student of your standards. We have created a Google site to house the various materials referenced in the online professional development sessions. This link is on the Office of Early Learning website where these recorded sessions are located. Once you have located the Google site, click on the K2 resource link. The resources for this section are located in the Kindergarten Counting and Cardinality folder. You will also find a link to a Google form that is being used as a reflection for this session. At the end of each month, we will send an email certificate of participation. You may include this certificate in your teacher evaluation portfolio. At the end of the reflection, there is a section for future topics. Please list the topics that would be helpful for you as you extend your teaching practice. This concludes the session on counting and cardinality. I want to thank you for participating, and also, if you have any additional questions or need additional support, please feel free to contact me, Lynn Baker, at the email address listed on this slide, lhbaker@access.k12.wv.us. Thank you for participating.